buy 70 units as it is 10 units. So we really we focus there. But the big reason why is economies of scale and efficiencies. And that's why is because you can have the third-party property management company, you can have an on-site full-time manager, you can have an on-site full-time service technician looking after the needs of the tenants and making sure that they're happy. And when you go into the smaller units, below 70, it's tough to do that from a numbers perspective. I'm not saying you can't do it, it's just tougher to do it, but we tend to stay in the 70 to kind of that 200 unit space. We'll talk a little bit now about why investing in multifamily, and I'm sure that a lot of people on the call today or the webinar today, know there's advantages to investing in multifamily. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go and pick off the kind of the high points. I think the first thing is it's always in demand. We're talking about kind of a shelter product, so it kind of falls under that necessary need of food and shelter. We're in the business of providing affordable housing, which always has been and always will be in demand. The next thing is we're kind of a recession-proof investment. When we enter into a cyclical market downturn or recessionary times, we're not affected in the apartment asset class we invest in. I got to emphasize we invest in because we're investing in B and C class apartments, and they tend to weather the storm a lot better than, say, maybe an A class apartment would. But again, we're recession-proof because we're investing into housing, but more importantly for us, we're investing into affordable housing for our residents. And this was really clearly proven in the most recent recession we just had. And our actual vacancies decreased as more demand was put on rentals because obviously people were getting out of home ownership or losing their houses to foreclosure and that type of thing. But really put a lot of pressure on our vacancies. They went down, and of course we saw upward pressure on rents as well. The next thing is we feel that we're in the inflation hedging business by investing in multifamily. We're investing in bricks and mortar, existing buildings, and as prices rise, so are our property values. So that's a good thing. So as the properties as cost of goods rise, so does our properties, and so does typically our rents. With multifamily buildings, in most cases, not all, but most cases, you're able to get leverage or bank financing, and of course. This is one of the few investments that banks will actually lend you money on to invest, and so they kind of invest alongside us, and we're seeing leverage that's anywhere from 50 to 75% depending on the asset. The next thing is tax benefits. Real estate is known for its tax benefits, and we'll be talking a little bit more in depth on this exact topic further in the presentation. The next thing is professional property management. We are typically involved in medium to large projects, so we always have professional third-party property management, thus leaving the day-to-day running of the business to industry professionals. Our projects always have at least one on-site full-time leasing manager, kind of a leasing/operations manager, and one full-time service technician. And our service technicians are always AC certified, and that's a requirement that Investar has just because we're typically down in those Sunbelt regions and all of our units have an air conditioning component, and we just want to make sure that we cut down on our third-party service calls to our AC service contractors, and we try to take care of as much as we can in-house. The next thing is with real estate, of course, we typically like the appreciation, and typically we get the appreciation over the course of time. And real estate will always go up in value over the course of time. We just look at what you paid for your house, or maybe what your parents paid for their home, and you can see what I mean. What they paid for a house back in 1970 or 1980 or 1990 for that matter, and what's that exact same house worth today? And so real estate over the course of time will always go up in price. So sure, there'll be peaks and valleys and things like that, but it'll always go up over the course of time. Now, with multifamily, our focus is on rent growth and increasing our net operating income, or NOI. And again, over the course of time, rent will increase, and ultimately our net operating income will increase as well. Investar USA has a value add program whereby we improve certain aspects of our complexes to achieve a higher rent, thus a higher net operating income, thus providing us with a great appreciation advantage. We're going to talk about our value add program and exactly what do we do to a building from a value add perspective to make it more there more value for the tenants, and of course increase our our cash flows, thus increase our values. The next thing is, of course, cash flow. Well-selected and well-managed properties can produce positive cash flow. Again, we will dive into this topic further in just a couple slides. On the value add side, we touched on this just moments ago, and value add is where we do very specific improvements to a property that creates additional value for our tenants, thus providing us additional rental income. The things we do to a property are quite extensive and involve both the common areas such as pools, landscape areas, and rec rooms, common areas, and also upgrades to the actual units that make our value add program such a benefit to both our tenants and us as owners. And the next thing is refinancing ability. This is simply a fantastic tool, and we'll be discussing this in more detail in just a couple slides. And historically, multifamily has been the safest real estate asset with the lowest risk and highest Sharpe ratio, which is really your risk-adjusted returns for the last 100 years. Economic cycle resistant, can generate yield in almost every market environment. So these are just a couple of the main points why invest in multifamily, and we could go on and on and on and talk about another 20 or 30 reasons why. But yeah, these are kind of the hot buttons as far as why invest in multifamily and why so many people are in the space and why so many people are actually coming to the space today. The next thing I'd like to talk about is how to select a market. And when we talk about how to select a market, we're going to go through a couple slides on this, but first and foremost is when we look at a market to invest in, the first thing that we look at is population growth. And so if you see the chart to the left-hand side there, you'll see that this is from the U.S. Census Bureau, so we don't have like numbers as of today, but the trend still holds true with what we're seeing here on the screen. So we talk about population increases. Of course, New York is leading the pack by a long shot, but one of the real strong markets is Houston, Texas, which we're really bullish on for a number of reasons, and we have a separate webinar we're doing specifically on Houston. But in our opinion, Houston, Texas is probably one of the strongest markets to invest in today in the multifamily space in the nation. Seen some tremendous population growth, and if you look quickly to the right there, you'll see some real positive job growth as well. Los Angeles has always been a strong on the population increase side. San Antonio, Texas, and Austin, Texas. So out of the four strongest population growth markets, Texas accounts for 3 of the 4, and so I think it says a lot for what's going on in Texas. The next thing that we look for, in addition to population growth, is job growth. We look for markets where there is actually job growth, and the reason why we do that is because it means that the economy is performing well. Things are happening. Employers are hiring employees, and we like that because those employees are our tenants. And so we really like that. So when you look across the U.S. at the strongest job growth markets, and you look at some of the markets that have come out of recovery from the recession, and you can see some of the top performers there. Houston, number 1 position, Dallas, number 2, Washington, 3rd, Boston, 4th, and New York, 5th. And so this kind of shows you where's the population growth, where's the job growth. And the next thing we look at is affordability. So if we know a market has positive population and job growth, we also want there to be affordability within that market. We're not looking to buy apartments that are, where the rents are $3,000 a month for our tenants. We're not investing in New York. And so we're still in the affordable price bracket, and we like, the average American renter, and that's our bread and butter, and that's really who we've kind of honed a niche into catering to. And so we're like the affordable markets. We like affordable single-family homes. We like affordable rental properties, and so we look for affordability within that market. And we like to be in markets where the average homeowner ratio is about 60 to 65%, and that's a good recipe for us. The next thing is we look at market cycles, and so when we choose a market, we want to be coming into a market at the bottom, or just coming out off the bottom and going into a steep increase in their rental increases and in appreciation. Sometimes we'll enter a market as it's still kind of on that downward slide, and you saw us do that in Phoenix, but we knew we were okay when we were seeing 9+% cash-on-cash returns. We knew that the bottom was near, but we didn't really care though, because we were making the cash-on-cash returns no matter what. But we knew the bottom was near because we were so far overcorrected and so far below replacement cost. But market cycles is important, so you can kind of see the graph to the side there. We kind of buy at that stage 1, the bottom, and the stage 2. That's kind of where we enter into the market, and that's where we are right now in Houston. The next thing is no rent controls. We don't like limitations on what we can do with our buildings, what we can do with rents. So we're investing into markets where there is no rent controls. The next thing is trade availability. Obviously, we are turning over units as tenants leave. We improve the units and have nice fresh units for people to move into. We don't want any problem in getting the trades in there to make that happen, because it would impede our rentability of that unit, thus affect our cash flow. So we need an abundance of trade availability. We need strong property management and business-friendly local and state governments. So those are